Real life drama that stirred up a storm of emotion. It's probably going to bring up a lot of emotion for you because these are your stories. If you want to submit a story, form is open. It is linked in the description of every single video that I post. The first story wants to be left anonymous. I found out my brother had an affair with my sister-in-law and got her pregnant. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll stir up a storm of emotion. Not good ones. They're divorced now, and it happened 5 years ago, so I feel it's appropriate now to share about it. This is definitely something I'll never forget discovering. I'll use fake names for privacy reasons. I, 45 male, caught my brother, we'll call him Steven, 40 male, in the middle of making out with our sister-in-law, Megan, 38 female. They threatened me to keep quiet, but I'm not like that. I was not going to stand back and keep quiet. Me and my sister teamed up to confront him. I'll provide context on how all of this came about so you will get the idea. Steven was married to Megan's sister, Amanda, 39 female, for 2 years when this happened, and it all seemed to be going perfectly until I, by accident, walked in on them. Amanda seemed to be everything you could look for in a partner. She always said the right things, always went out of her way to make others happy, and she was like a sister to me because Steven is my only brother. Steven and Megan met through me because Megan and I worked together at a local bakery. I always felt like she and Steven would make a good couple because they have always had a great connection when Steven came by to purchase food. I encouraged Steven to go out with her, and the rest is history. Boy, did it backfire. Just to keep in mind, this was happening during the pandemic, so we were always around each other most of the time and no one else. Eventually, as soon as things began to open up again, we felt it was safe to travel to Panama City Beach for summer vacation. We rented a condo right by the beach for a week. It was me, Steven, Megan, and Amanda. Steven and Amanda shared one bedroom. Megan had her own room, and I slept on the couch in the living room. On the night this happened, we had spent a long day at the beach going boat riding and grabbed some drinks at the local beach bar. Needless to say, Megan had a little too much to drink. We were playing cards for hours that evening, and Megan kept drinking margaritas. I do like me a good margarita, let me just say. I hate tequila. I will vomit, projectile vomit if I do a shot of it, but in a margarita, baby, well, you don't taste it at that point. I took the glass away from Megan after what was like 3 more glasses on top of the ones earlier, and I told her she needed to go to bed. She obviously couldn't walk on her own, so Steven helped her upstairs to her bedroom. Obviously, I didn't think anything was out of the ordinary until about 30 minutes had passed and Steven hadn't come yet. Nope. Oh, Steve, oh my God. That is not what I meant to say. Okay, whoa, not what I meant to say, y'all. That is not what it says. Hold on. Well, I mean, he hadn't. Okay. Until about 30 minutes had passed and Steven hadn't yet come back down. Me and Amanda were still talking in the meantime. Her phone rang and she told me to go see what was keeping Steven busy while she took a phone call with our mom. I made my way up the stairs and all of a sudden I started to hear what sounded like lips locking and giggling. I was confused, and as I turned the corner from the stairwell, I saw Steven and Megan making out in Megan's bedroom. From what I saw, both of their clothes were starting to come off. I stood there speechless, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I wasn't sure how to react to this, but I sure did gasp. Apparently, loud enough to hear me, and Steven turned around and started freaking out. I immediately turned and went back downstairs. Amanda was still on the phone with our mom, so I couldn't go straight to her at the time. I just went out to the back patio and stayed there for some time to gather myself about what I had just seen. I knew I needed to tell Amanda what I had just seen, but I wasn't sure how. After all, everyone did have drinks, and I wasn't sure if Amanda would remember the conversation. Not long afterwards, Steven came out, and I was nervous about what to say. Steven spoke first. You saw nothing. You keep your mouth shut or you'll regret it. For context, Steven was much bigger and stronger than me. I'm 5'11" and he's 6'3" and he weighs 230 pounds. He was always intimidating in our lives. We had gotten into fights like brothers do, and I knew I couldn't beat him if we did get into a fist fight. All I could say was, okay. Obviously, I wasn't going to let this slide. The next morning, I woke up and went downstairs and saw that Amanda was already up, and I immediately told her that there was something she needed to know. I knew better to let her drink her morning coffee first because she needed to be alert for what I was about to say. I caught Stephen and Megan making out last night. Amanda looked at me like I had two heads. Stephen would never do such a thing. I tried my best to explain to her how I caught them and that they looked as if they were in the middle of taking things further, but she didn't believe me. I've never lied to you, and you know I never would, so why would I lie about something like this? Finally, it seemed like I had finally gotten through to her. She was going to confront Stephen and Megan, and I told her I would do it with her for support. About an hour later, Megan was the first to come downstairs. When asked if she remembered anything that happened last night, she said she didn't. Once Stephen came down, our attention turned on him. I let Amanda do the talking first. She said, "Do you want to explain what happened last night?" Stephen acted like nothing happened and that it was a good day at the beach. Amanda pressed on what happened when he took Megan upstairs, and that's when his face started to turn red and he focused on me. I had a feeling things were about to turn ugly, so I grabbed a wooden spoon and was hiding it in my back pocket with my hand on the handle, ready to use it if Stephen were to charge. Wooden spoon! I love that a wooden spoon was your choice of weapon. He said, "You spoke of it?" The way he said those words were spine-chilling, and I just stood there with a stern look, showing that I wasn't playing. Thankfully, Amanda stepped in between us, but to my surprise, smacked Stephen on the head. "How could you?" She turned to Megan and started smacking her repeatedly. While they were over there fighting, me and Stephen locked eyes, and with lots of courage, I told him that there was nothing he could do and that he doesn't scare me. Surprisingly, he grunted and turned and walked away. After breaking up Megan and Amanda, I told them that they needed to quit fighting, and I told Megan what happened, and from the look on her face, she knew that she was caught. We first hooked up the night of the bachelorette party. Ooh. All right. That means they had been cheating behind Amanda's back before they were even married. It wasn't just a drunken mishap. This had been going on for some time. Memories started flashing back to me of when me and Megan were talking about me setting them up together. I felt extremely guilty and angry that I had set them up in the first place. Obviously, I didn't think this would happen, but I still felt like part of it was my fault for setting them up. But just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Megan dropped a bombshell when she told us, "Oh my God, what is happening?" She told us that she was pregnant. Well, I've just heard it all. Both me and Amanda just stared at each other in disbelief. How could you be pregnant with a child from my husband? Amanda ran over to the sink and started throwing up. This is actually devastating though. At this point, I needed to get some fresh air, so I just walked along the beach all morning. Long story short, we canceled the rest of the vacation. It was a very quiet and awkward flight home. Stephen and Amanda are now divorced, and now she doesn't even talk to Megan anymore. As for the pregnancy, Megan wound up getting an abortion. I can't help but feel somewhat responsible because I was the one who encouraged them to be together in the first place. Even though she has told me I shouldn't feel it, I still do feel guilty. I don't talk to Stephen as much anymore because I couldn't believe he could do that. He is my brother and I love him deeply, but we just aren't on speaking terms. Our family has been torn apart by this mess, and I'm not sure if we will ever fully recover from this. That is definitely a vacation I won't forget, and I just hope someday we can all put this behind us and come together eventually. I wasn't prepared. I was not prepared for that story. Yup. Every emotion came out of me in that story. So, next story also wants to be left anonymous. I discovered my girlfriend had been cheating on me with another guy. Oh my gosh. We got another cheater. I love cheating. It's terrible. It's terrible for me to say this. I have been cheated on. Worst feeling. Don't wish it upon anyone. But for some reason, it's like when someone's like, "Oh, I've been cheated on." I'm like, tell me how. How'd you find out? Who with? How long? What happened? I want to know everything. One day I'll tell you guys my story. One day. It's one thing to cheat, but she didn't even try to hide the evidence. That is how dumb she was. I'll give some background on how all of this happened. Just a heads up, get ready for a twist. Ho ho! Don't tempt me with a good time. This is like an episode of Friends rolled up into one. I, 29 male, was in a relationship with my then girlfriend, we'll call her Tiffany, 33 female, for 3 years. We met in 2022 through mutual friends at work. I was a security guard at a financial institution in downtown Chicago. Being from Chicago, my job comes with high risks, so I always prioritize staying in shape, and I work out every morning. I'm 6'5", 220 pounds. Holy you're tall. Wow, 6'5". I have a friend, one of my good friends, and he's 6'4". Yeah, he's 6'4". He's a beast. In the best way. That is not an insult. So I definitely fit the requirements for the job. What I do is I'm in charge of monitoring security footage as well as inspecting guests' personal items at the firm's security checkpoint at the main entrance. I've dealt with some bad guys here and there, but I won't forget about catching this thief trying to rob Tiffany when we met. For context, my security office was right next to the main entrance. If I wasn't doing security checking, I'd be in the office watching security cameras throughout the building. It was close to closing time and most of the staff had already gone home for the evening, so it was just me and one other security guard on duty. Suddenly, we hear the alarm going off and I scroll through the security footage and I see a male in dark clothing holding a weapon pointed at Tiffany, who worked as a financial advisor. They were located at the north entrance by the ATM. He had demanded Tiffany to open the ATM and held her at point, and I made my way around the corner. I noticed he was smaller compared to me, so I knew I could easily apprehend him if I could take him down. I slowly but surely timed my approach as I sneaked up on him, wrestled him to the ground, and locked him in handcuffs. Me and my partner restrained him until the police arrived to take him away. Afterwards, Tiffany came to me and thanked me for saving her life. As you can expect, she was head over heels for me and wanted to repay me for what I did. We started dating and I was very happy. I never envisioned I would meet a girl this way, but it seemed like things were going so well until they weren't. A few years later, Tiffany got a new job working as a manager at a different bank. At first, I was upset we wouldn't be working at the same place anymore, but since we're a couple, it felt like it was only appropriate that we did spend some more time away from each other during the day. We had just moved in together 8 months prior at this point. I always supported Tiffany in her career, and I always looked forward to coming home to her, calling me her knight in shining armor. I basically was in her eyes. I then started to realize Tiffany had started working later than usual. She told me she would work later on some nights, and she said that she'd be going out to happy hour with coworkers. I never suspected Tiffany would ever cheat on me and never even thought about it. But then something caught my eye. Tiffany had just been out at happy hour on this Friday night beforehand. The next morning, I noticed something strange on her upper thigh as we were cuddling on the couch. For context, Tiffany had never had tattoos until I saw this one, and from the look of it, it appeared to have someone's name written with a heart. Surely not her affair partner. When asked what the tattoo was, she started getting dismissive and got up and walked away saying, "It's an old tattoo. Don't worry about it." Yeah, like I was just going to leave it at that. I finally made her show me it, and it had the name David written inside of a heart. Who the hell was David? She ultimately confessed to having an affair with David for a couple of months. But not just any David. Ooh! My best friend, David. Hold on. She starts hooking up with your best friend and gets a tattoo of him and his name with a heart and thought you wouldn't notice, you wouldn't realize, you wouldn't. What? Come on now. I had only introduced Tiffany to David once before. It turns out, when Tiffany said she was going out to these happy hours, she was actually going to David's place. Needless to say, I was very heartbroken and stunned. When I asked why she would do this, she said, "I realized that I was only in love with you for what you did for me, rather than actually being in love with you." Thanks. I told her that I had dedicated the last 3 years of my life to her and that what I did back at the firm, I would do again for her. I loved Tiffany with all of my heart. If she really felt that way, why didn't she tell me this before we started dating? And how could she cheat on me with my best friend? Long story short, me and Tiffany broke up, and as for David, I confronted him about it, but he acted like it was just a mistake. Cheating is never a mistake. I broke things off with David as well. Not only did I lose the women I loved, I lost my best friend too. I've battled depression and have trust issues because of this, and I'm currently seeking help, and I admit that I once nearly, no, no, ended my life because of how bad my depression got. I can't help but feel like I had been played. I once saved someone from something dark and now I'm the one in need of saving. I hope to have a follow-up with this story soon, but I need to focus on myself and get back in the right frame of mind. Yes, you do. Okay? This is not your story. This is one chapter and it's a crappy chapter. It's a really crappy chapter, but you close that and there are so many other beautiful chapters to come. Okay? I promise you will heal. You will get better. As someone who's been through it, man, and a lot of people go through infidelity and terrible things and betrayal, you're gonna be okay. Well, now I'm just sad because it's one of you guys out there hurting and that makes me so sad. Let's take a sip of water before the next one because I think we need to lighten the mood a little bit. Cheers! Drink your water. Or a margarita. I'm not opposed to it. I actually cannot be having alcohol at this point in time. If you guys have been with me for the long haul, especially on Instagram, you know I've had stomach issues for many years. Well, I had recent tests done and turns out they found some cysts on my liver. Really fun. Don't panic. We're gonna keep an eye on them. There's not much I can do right now, but I was finding that anytime I did drink alcohol, I was in a lot of pain and inflammation. It's explaining why. But I have a few more tests coming up next week. I'll keep you guys posted, but the journey continues with the stomach issues. No margaritas for me. The next story also wants to be left anonymous. I am currently no contact with my cousin. Names are fake. I am 26 female. Cousin Susan is 25 female. Susan and I grew up very close. I consider her my sister, and I honestly believe that she thought of me that way too. We were into the same things, so it was always easy to find something fun to do. Even though we had similar interests, we had polar opposite personalities. I was extremely shy, quiet, and easily overwhelmed by noise and chaos. Susan was outgoing and always wanted attention. She thrived on chaos. Because of our temperaments, I had a tendency to take a back seat in the friendship. It wasn't a big deal at first. It was smaller things like her getting to choose the best Barbies every time. Around the age of 10, I started to notice that when all of our cousins were together, Susan wanted nothing to do with me. She only wanted to play with our older cousin, Valerie. She would start a game with me, then Valerie would interrupt and ask Susan to go do something else with her, and then they would both ditch me. At the same time, I felt betrayed, but was always told that's just how she is. As we got into our teenage years, Susan became the ultimate one-upper. This was not just with me, but with everyone in her life. If I expressed frustration with AP, Advanced Placement Language Assignment, she would say, "Well, I go to private school and our classes are much more intense than yours." You know the type. With Susan, this never went away. Whenever she says this stuff, I just keep my mouth shut. I know for a fact my dad was paying for her private school and has paid for many other things that allowed her and her family to maintain a certain lifestyle. I don't like to throw my dad's money around as leverage, but I really hated how she used something that he made possible to isolate and belittle me. Now that you have the background, this is where it gets wild. Once I went to college, I started to grow a backbone. I was standing up to her in really small ways, and I felt us growing apart. It's funny how when you start to set boundaries, you also start to lose some people. Yes. Yup. I'm going to skip a few relatively smaller issues as to not bore you, but the TLDR is she continued to express more entitlement and seemed to embody a mean girl stereotype. Fast forward to 2025. A different cousin was getting married. Susan and I were bridesmaids. I went to the wedding shower planned by the bride's mom, and it was beautiful. Susan had to work that day because she had just used most of her vacation days on a European excursion. A couple months later, I got an invitation for another bridal shower. This one is being planned by, you guessed it, Susan. The invitation encouraged us to buy another gift and get together to celebrate the bride. I was honestly a bit petty because the bride had said she did not expect me or anyone else to go. She did not want 2 wedding showers and she thought it was way too much to expect people to travel twice for the same kind of event and to get another gift. I had just had surgery and I could not drive. I decided since I went to the first one and it would be hard for me to get a ride to the second one, I would not attend. I guess most people were not able to come. The guest list was the same as the first shower because Susan texted me saying that she hadn't seen my RSVP, but was looking forward to seeing me at the bridal shower. I told her, since I went to the original one and would have a difficult time getting to the second one, I would not be attending. Obviously, this was an unacceptable answer to Susan because she told her mom, my aunt, and our grandma that I didn't want to go. My aunt tried to guilt trip me, but I just said the same thing. Susan and my aunt tried to get me in trouble by telling my mom, but my mom and I were laughing at their texts in the same room as this was happening. I think they were just upset because they rented a huge event space and only a few people were going to show up. 2 weeks before the wedding, Susan said she was bringing her boyfriend to the wedding. Excuse me? What boyfriend? Susan had met this guy 2 weeks prior, so by the wedding, they would have only been dating for a month. The bride and groom, of course, said no because it's very last minute and they aren't making changes. Susan became somewhat aloof, but still passive aggressive. Suddenly, the bride and groom are getting calls from our grandma and Susan's mom about how disappointed they are in them for not thinking of how Susan feels that she is missing out on this opportunity to introduce her boyfriend to family. They basically said, why would I care if you are disappointed in me? You haven't paid my bills like you do for Susan. Even though there was drama leading up to the wedding, it ended up being a beautiful day. After all the wedding drama, I knew it was time to stay distant from Susan. I was grieving the loss of the sisterhood that we used to share. One day, she was visiting our grandma who lives very close to me, so I decided to go and say hello for just an hour. I ended up getting peer pressured by my aunt, grandma, and Susan to go out later that night to an art show downtown. My boundaries with family are sometimes about as firm as a wet cardboard box. Susan drives us and it's going well for a bit. We are outside looking at all the artist booths. It is dark out by this point and there are many homeless people around because it is a less monitored part of the city. I set my drink down on a table to get out my wallet and buy something. I assumed Susan and her friend would stay where they were behind me. When I turned around, I didn't see them. They had walked down the street to a different section of the festival. I collected my things and I caught up with them. All of a sudden, I start to feel woozy and get brain fog. The drink. Oh my God, someone put something in your drink when you put it down. If you know what derealization is, that is what it feels like. I realized that I had set my drink down, assuming Susan was right behind me and would see if anyone touched it. But she had walked down the street. That meant I had sipped a drink that I left sitting on a table without watching it. I told Susan privately, so as not to make a scene, that I felt like something was put in my drink. She said, LOL, are you okay? I told her I didn't know. Susan continued socializing with her friends for 2 more hours, while I sat there trying to remain conscious and safe. Crazy. I called my best friend and she was giving me safety tips and was about to jump in her car and drive 2 hours to pick me up. She said I sounded awful, but I don't really remember how I sounded. I don't think I got that much in my system because it did taste weird after I believed it was tampered with, so I didn't finish the whole thing. I don't really remember the drive home, but I did get home. I want to be completely clear. I do not blame Susan for my drink getting messed with. I made an assumption and was not careful enough. I blame her for not taking me home or getting help as soon as something was wrong, just because she selfishly wanted to socialize more. The next day, my mom had to drop off a prescription for my grandma and Susan was there. My mom went off on her for being so inconsiderate and putting my safety at risk. Susan said OP didn't communicate very well, so I didn't really know what she wanted me to do. I just find the blame so ironic because isn't that the point of whatever unknown substance was in my system? I wasn't supposed to be able to communicate properly, lol. But I did say I thought something slipped in my drink. Even if my communication about what needed to happen was unclear, I would expect someone who was like a sister to me to get me out of the situation. Plus, Susan is a registered nurse. Trust me, we have all had to hear about how she was in a rigorous nursing program and is not working at a prestigious hospital. Anyways, my aunt and grandma called my mom an a-hole because she made Susan feel so bad that she was in tears. Poor Susan. I waited 48 hours to see if she would send a message to check on me. When I didn't, I blocked her on everything. It might seem a bit extreme, but I don't believe in being friends with someone who is so careless about my physical safety. After blocking her, I didn't hear anything for 4 months. Then, out of the blue, my dad receives a call from my aunt trying to tell him that I'm being unfair to Susan and blaming her for what happened. My dad told her he supports me, but also that Susan and I are adults and he doesn't want to hear about it because it's not his business. That is the end of what happened so far. I don't even feel mad at her. Just indifferent about her because of how disconnected we are. I will be fine to do cordial small talk with Susan at family gatherings, but I do not see her ever being unblocked. She would have to make some big changes, and right now she's too busy with her own ego. Stay safe out there, friends. Yeah, well, I think you guys, like you said, can mend some kind of cordial relationship, but all the stories, not just the last one, clearly you guys are different people. You've grown apart. You're not on the same wavelength. I don't know. I feel like the friendship just won't be the same. Just because of who you guys are as people, even. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just best to be like, I wish you well from afar, but we don't need to be close friends. You know? Let me know your thoughts and feelings. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy. I will see you guys tomorrow.